If you've been keeping an eye on Calgary's housing market, you know it has been an absolute roller coaster. I mean, just a couple of years back, all anyone could talk about was the crisis of having no supply. But today, the entire conversation has flipped on its head. So let's get into it. This is the incredible story of how Calgary's housing market is rebalancing right before our very eyes. So that's the big question we're going to unpack here. How on earth did we go from desperate bidding wars and basically zero vacancy to a market that's suddenly flooded with options? It really does feel like it happened overnight, but the answer? Well, it's a fascinating story of cause and effect. The heart of this whole thing is really a clash of titans. Seriously, think of it like a heavyweight fight. In one corner, you've got this unprecedented wave of demand hitting the city, and in the other corner, a record-smashing surge of new supply. For a little while there, they were pretty evenly matched. But now, one of those fighters has taken a step back, leaving the other one to completely dominate the ring. All right, so let's start with what really kicked this whole thing off. A massive, massive demand shock. When you're talking about the rental market, the single biggest thing that moves the needle is always migration. And what Calgary saw recently, it was truly off the charts. To really put this into perspective, let's look at the baseline, the normal. Historically, Calgary's international migration was super steady. It hovered right around 10,000 people a year. That was the predictable rhythm the market was built for. And then this happened. In a single peak year, that number just exploded to nearly 70,000. That's a seven-fold increase. Just try to imagine 7 years of typical migration all showing up at once. The pressure on our housing stock was just immense. And that's really the crucial point here. This sudden spike in population, it just soaked up everything that was available. Every single rental, every resale property. It wasn't just, a tight market. It was a genuine supply crisis, and it was all driven by this incredible wave of new Calgarians. But a market like Calgary's, well, it doesn't just sit on its hands. That low vacancy and those soaring rents, they sent a huge signal to the market. And the market responded with an absolutely historic building boom. And the scale of this response is just staggering. In 2024 alone, construction started on 7,500 new purpose-built rental units. So these are entire buildings designed specifically for renting, not for individual condo sales. Let me be clear. We have never, ever seen this much rental construction in our city's entire history. So where is all this new supply actually popping up? It's pretty concentrated in a few key spots. We're seeing it way out in the new communities in the Northwest, in massive new towers going up in the Southwest, and a huge amount right in the inner city, especially in the Beltline. So if you own property in any of these areas, you're on the front lines of this new wave of competition. And here's another really fundamental shift. In past booms, whenever you saw a new apartment building go up, it was almost always for condo ownership. This time, it's a totally different ballgame. Thanks to government incentives trying to encourage rental housing, plus just the sheer market demand, the vast majority of these new builds are purpose-built rentals. That means this new supply is directly targeting the vacancy rate in a way we have never seen before. Okay, so we've got record supply hitting the market, but just as all these new units are getting ready to open their doors, the other side of the equation, demand, takes a sudden, and I mean dramatic turn. This is the big twist in our story. The drop-off is just wow. Because of some major shifts in federal immigration policy, which were aimed at easing housing pressure across the whole country, international migration has plummeted. It went from that peak of nearly 70,000 people all the way down to just 18,000 so far this year. It's like the demand tap was turned completely off right as the supply floodgates were swinging wide open. And this creates a major problem with something called the absorption rate. It's a fancy term, but all it means is how fast new units get filled up by tenants. So when you have record supply hitting the market at the exact same moment that population growth slows way down, well, it's just going to take a lot longer to absorb or fill all of those new homes. So what does all of this actually mean on the ground for real people? It means we've moved into a totally new reality. And the one word that defines Calgary's rental market right now is competition. It is a complete power flip. I mean, think back to 2023. Landlords had all the leverage, you had bidding wars, double-digit rent growth. Now, as we're heading into 2025, the power has shifted decisively over to the renters. They're the ones who are going to see more choices, more incentives, and softening rents. The amount of choice for renters has effectively doubled in just 1 year. So for landlords, this means your competition isn't just the house down the street anymore. Oh no. You are now competing with thousands of brand new, modern apartments that are offering all the latest amenities. Okay, so knowing all of this, how in the world do you navigate the next couple of years? Whether you're an investor, a landlord, or even a renter, it is definitely time to start thinking strategically. So here's the general forecast, the roadmap, if you will. We fully expect vacancy to keep climbing through 2025. Competition is going to stay fierce in 2026 as even more of those projects we saw earlier come online. Then, probably by 2027, as new construction finally slows down and all this existing supply gets absorbed, we should start to see the market stabilize again. So what's your game plan in this new market? Well, first, you just have to accept the new reality of heavy competition. Second, you've got to position your property to win. That might mean upgrading an older unit or maybe strategically adjusting your rent. Third, be ready to negotiate. Renters have a lot of options now. And finally, you need to become a student of the data. Keep a really close eye on those migration numbers because they'll be the very first sign of a recovery. And look, here's the bottom line for property owners right now, and it's some pretty pragmatic advice from the experts. In a market like this, a slightly lower rent that gets you a good, stable tenant is so much better than holding out for that peak price and ending up with an empty unit collecting zero rent. And there you have it, the great rebalancing of Calgary's housing market. The supply wave has officially crashed ashore, just as the demand wave has, for now, retreated back to sea. The crucial question at this point isn't if the market will find a new equilibrium, but when. How long is this adjustment period going to last? And what's the next big shift that's going to change the timeline all over again? It's a dynamic story for sure. And the next chapter, well, it's still being written.